Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take these big stacks of research and really try to boil them down for you. Today we're embarking on, well, quite a profound journey. We're going back about 500 years. We'll be looking into the life, the really extensive travels, and the, frankly, revolutionary teachings of a figure our sources call the Great Humanist, Guru Nanak. He lived from 1469 to 1538. Now, to really get a handle on his message, I think we first need to picture the world he was born into. Our sources paint a pretty bleak picture of 15th century India as an age of, well, massive turmoil, political chaos, constant invasion.
Yeah, wealth-hungry marauders, civil strife everywhere. Society was, really suffering, lots of darkness, superstition. People felt pretty lost, looking only to God for any kind of help.
Right, and into this vacuum, Guru Nanak appears.
Exactly. But what's fascinating is he didn't just set up another rigid religion to fill that gap. Instead, he offered something deeply practical, universal even. He taught that truth was true living. And that real peace, lasting peace, it's found within, not through complicated rituals or ceremonies, but through how you actually live your life ethically.
So what was the core message then?
It was revolutionary in its simplicity, really. Mankind is one, humanity is indivisible, and the law of life, it's straightforward. Love each other, serve your community, find God through his true name. He made a point of saying he belonged to everyone, but to no single existing faith.
That sounds incredibly radical, especially, given the strict social divisions and religious tensions of that era. So if we want the shortcut to understanding his impact, our mission today is really to unpack the stories, right? The anecdotes, the dialogues from the sources. We need to see how he actually did this, how he pushed back against formalism, how he emphasized practical ethics, this universal faith idea. Got to get into the details to grasp the philosophy. Okay, let's unpack this. So our journey starts with Guru Nanak's early life in Talwandi, in Punjab. That's now Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. He was born into a respected family. His father, Medikalu, was the village accountant, the Batwari.
A position with relatively high social standing.
Right.
And his mother was Mata Tripat. He also had an older sister, Bibi Nanki. She seems to have recognized the spiritual side quite early on.
So born into comfort. He could have just followed his dad's footsteps, right? Bureaucracy, maybe wealth.
Absolutely. But the sources make it clear his spiritual curiosity really kicked in very young.
And the first real sign of this different path came pretty early, challenging education itself.
Yes, exactly. When he was about 9, his father sent him to the village school, standard practice. And there, he has this deep conversation with his teacher, the Pandit. The teacher asks him to repeat the alphabet, the basics of literacy.
But he didn't just repeat them, did he? He did something else entirely.
That's right. Guru Nanak wrote just 2 or 3 letters, forming the words, "I have made Soyim," which essentially means that I am. The Pandit was, stunned. He asked what deep meaning could possibly be in these simple symbols, challenging the boy for not following the lesson.
Wow. That must have been tense. Literacy, sacred texts. That was huge back then for social standing. So what did Guru Nanak say about knowledge?
He was incredibly direct. He said that knowing things, even reading lots of books, is pointless, completely vain if you forget the ultimate truth. Our sources quote him saying something like, "To love him is the end of knowledge, and to forget him is to forget the truth, even though one may carry a cartload of books."
So learning without spiritual grounding is basically useless. Blindness, even.
Precisely. He argued that rote learning, just academic stuff without realizing the spirit behind it, without ethical conduct, means nothing. The Pandit apparently realized right away this wasn't just any student. He saw him as something more, not an ordinary mortal.
That's a huge statement against just ritualized learning. But his challenges went even further, didn't they? With the sacred thread ceremony, the Yajnapavitam.
Oh, absolutely. That was a major confrontation. For his father, Medikalu, this ceremony was critical. It marked Guru Nanak's formal entry into his high caste family tradition, symbolized everything, lineage, heritage. Medikalu made huge preparations, invited the family priest, Harjal, the whole community was there.
And then the moment comes to put the thread, the jenu, around his neck.
And Guru Nanak stops him firmly. He asks these basic questions. What is this cotton thread? Why wear it? What good does it actually do for the person wearing it?
The priest must have given the standard answer, right? Tradition, status, spiritual protection.
Yes, the usual explanations. But Guru Nanak countered that these symbols are temporary. A cotton thread. It breaks, it gets dirty, it gets lost, it's external, fragile. And then, this is on page 12 of our sources, he offers this radical alternative, the true sacred thread.
What was it made of?
He said it must be made out of the cotton of compassion, tied with knots of continence and twisted with truth.
Ah, so shifting it completely from something you wear on the outside to qualities you cultivate on the inside.
Exactly. He argued this internal thread, compassion, self-control, sincerity, that's the superior one. It never breaks, it never gets soiled by life, and it doesn't depend on any outward show. He basically said, look, if someone wears the outer thread but has no control over their senses, lives wildly, they're still spiritually blind, thread or no thread.
So zooming out, the implication here is massive. He's not just rejecting a piece of cotton.
No, not all.
He's rejecting the whole idea that spiritual status or purity can be inherited or just given through a ceremony. He's hitting it at the caste system, formalism, favoring inner conviction.
Absolutely. The sources say the crowd was just stunned into silence. The truth of it was, kind of undeniable. Wearing the outfit of holiness without the interchange. Meaningless. So this event, right at the start, basically sets his agenda. Faith has to be sincere, rooted in ethical action, not just social custom or external symbols.
Okay, so despite these really clear, almost revolutionary spiritual moments, his father, Metakalu, he didn't give up trying to get him into a normal worldly job.
Oh, definitely not. You can imagine Metakalu's frustration. He's got this brilliant son, but he needs him to, make a living, keep up the family standing. So he tries steering him towards business. First, maybe stock breeding, then dealing in horses, hoping responsibility, managing money would somehow ground him.
But Guru Nanak had already kind of redefined business, hadn't he?
Completely. He used these parables that just flipped the whole idea of worldly success on its head. When his father pushed him about using money, Guru Nanak gave that famous metaphor about the shop.
Right, remind us of that one.
He said, the way to use this life, this body, is I make this frail body my shop. I make meditation the container. I stock it with the true name. I trade with the dealers of the true name. The real goal, he said, wasn't rupees. It was accumulating the wealth of truth and virtue, trading that with other good people.
And the horse dealer analogy, too.
Yeah, the true horse dealer isn't selling animals. He's breeding the horse of truth, storing the wealth of virtue. That's the kind of wealth you need for the spiritual journey, he argued. It removes anxiety. It's fueled by faith. He just co-opted the language of commerce for spiritual aims.
Which leads us straight into that iconic story, the true bargain, the Sacha Sauda.
Ah, yes. Cornerstone story. Metakalu gives Guru Nanak 20 rupees, which was a decent amount back then. Tells him specifically, go do some business, make a profit.
But Guru Nanak runs into some ascetics.
Exactly. Near the village, he finds this group of holy men who hadn't eaten for days. They were literally starving.
And for him, feeding them was the best possible business deal.
Absolutely. He spent the whole 20 rupees on food and supplies for them, called it the true bargain. His friend Bala, who was with him, was naturally worried. Like, what are we going to tell your father? We made zero profit.
Understandable concern.
But Guru Nanak just declared that this act of service was the highest form of investment. He said something like, my investment will bless the giver here and hereafter.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Metakalu's reaction. Predictably furious, I imagine?
Oh, absolutely livid. He saw it as money totally wasted on, in his view, useless beggars. But then the local landowner, Rai Gular, stepped in. He already respected Guru Nanak, saw something special in him.
Ah, Rai Bular intervenes.
Yes. He hears the whole story of the Sacha Sauda. And for Rai Bular, this wasn't failure, it was confirmation. Confirmation that Guru Nanak was a messenger of God. He tells Metakalu, look, your son isn't meant for making worldly profit. His profit is in heaven. Rai Bular even offered to pay Metakalu back the 20 rupees himself.
Wow.
And more importantly, he insisted Metakalu let the boy follow his own spiritual path unhindered.
So that event really cemented it. Ethical action, serving others, that's the real trade, the real spiritual practice. And this theme, inner spiritual reality over just outward stuff, it pops up again with the physician Hari Das.
Right. When Guru Nanak was about 16, his parents were getting worried again. He seems withdrawn, detached. So they call in this famous physician, Hari Das, to figure out what's wrong with him. Hari Das starts the usual checkup, tries to take his pulse.
But Guru Nanak basically says you're looking in the wrong place, right?
Exactly. He tells Hari Das, diagnose the disease of the soul, not the body. Then he defines his own illness, separation from God. Caused, he said, by the mind being blinded by desire, chasing temporary pleasures. He challenged the physician, the body only matters while it's alive, but the real sickness is in the soul, and your tools can't detect that.
So what was the cure he proposed for this separation?
The cure, he explained, was the saving grace of the true name. That's what could banish the impurities and transmute it into pure gold. Purify the soul. Haridas, realizing who he was talking to, basically told Mantakalu, "Your son isn't sick in the way you think. He's destined for greatness, like the prophets, not ordinary life." It just shows again how consistently Guru Nanak put that inner spiritual state, that connection or separation from God, above everything physical. Devotion was the ultimate medicine.
Okay, so after these really formative early years, Guru Nanak's path takes him to Sultanpur. His sister Bibi Nanki and her husband Jairam live there.
Right. And through Jairam's connections, Guru Nanak actually gets a pretty respectable job. He becomes a storekeeper for the local governor, Nawab Daulat Khan Lodi, managing the grain stores.
Proving he could handle worldly responsibility when needed.
Exactly. He did the job diligently, but he did it with this unusual constant state of devotion. Famously, when counting out grain measures, he'd get to the number 13, which is Tara in Punjabi.
Which also means, I am thine.
Precisely. So he'd get stuck on 13, repeating, Tara, Tara, I am thine, over and over, lost in devotion to God. Apparently, sometimes he'd give out way more grain than required in this state.
Okay, I can see how that would lead to accusations. People probably thought he was being careless, wasting state supplies because he was too busy being spiritual.
That's exactly what happened. His critics complained, accused him of mismanagement. The Nawab ordered a full audit, expecting to find a huge deficit.
And the result.
Surprise. The sources say the accounts were perfect. In fact, there was a small surplus in Guru Nanak's favor. He'd done his job with total integrity, guided by spirit, not just calculation.
But soon after being cleared, he resigned anyway.
He did. And when Jairam asked him, okay, so what now? Guru Nanak stated his mission very clearly. His goal was to bring men nearer to God to enjoy the treasures of happiness.
Which must have immediately raised the big question for his family, right? Is he becoming a hermit now? Is he going to renounce everything, become a sannyasi?
Ah, yes, this is a really crucial point. Because in 15th century India, becoming a sannyasi, abandoning family, wealth, that was often seen as the absolute peak of holiness. So Jairam asks him directly, are you becoming a sannyasi? And Guru Nanak's answer is definitive. No. He confirms he is not abandoning his family or his responsibilities.
He chose the householder path instead. Why was that so significant? Wouldn't being a sannyasi give him more time for God?
It was a very conscious choice, a rejection of escapism. He stated firmly, the path of the householder can also be stable-minded. He wanted to show that you could live righteously, be devoted, while being engaged in the world, that the home could be a place of love, service, honest work, which he saw as essential for godliness.
So not running away from challenges, but finding spirituality within them.
Exactly. He was redefining piety. It wasn't about withdrawal. It was about active, ethical engagement.
And this focus on practical integration, it really culminates shortly after with that key moment, right? The incident at the river Kalisangi, his big spiritual awakening.
Yes, a hugely significant event. He went for his usual morning bath in the river and disappeared. For 3 whole days. His family, especially Bibi Nanki, were beside themselves searching frantically, assuming he'd drowned.
And his reappearance.
Just as dramatic. He emerges from the water, reportedly with this luminous glow about him. The sources say he'd had a direct vision, a communion with God on the plane of truth.
And the very first thing he says upon returning changes everything.
It does, that powerful unifying statement. There is no Hindu, there is no Muslim.
Wow. Just like that, cutting right through all the divisions of the time.
It was the philosophical launchpad for everything else. It laid the ground for his core theology, the Moom mantra.
Right, the first principle of his creed. What are the key elements there?
The foundation is Ik Onkar, the one reality, the one creator, often translated as one creator. Guru Nanak described the Supreme Being as timeless, birthless, self-existent, the creator of everything without fear, without enmity, and crucially, known only through the grace of the true guru, the true teacher.
So absolute monotheism. God is one.
Yes, and pervasive. He's within everything without everything. Lord of lords, King of kings, everything operates under his will. The core is, God is one, God is everywhere, and God is accessible to all.
A message that powerful, that unifying. It was bound to ruffle feathers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which it did, famously in the mosque.
Oh, definitely. After Guru Nanak made this no Hindu, no Muslim declaration, the Nawab, Daulat Khan Lodi, perhaps wanted to test him or maybe force him to pick a side. He invited Guru Nanak to join him and the Qazi, the judge priest, for Friday prayers in the mosque.
He went, but didn't participate.
He went along, yes, but when the prayers started, he just stood apart. Didn't bow, didn't perform the ritual gestures.
That sounds incredibly risky. He's publicly defying the religious and political authorities right there in the mosque.
Immensely risky. The Qazi was furious. "Why aren't you praying with us?" he demanded. And Guru Nanak explained that the outward act, the bowing, was hollow because neither the Qazi nor the Nawab was actually praying in their hearts or minds.
He knew what they were thinking.
Apparently so. He told the Qazi his mind was wandering, worried about his horse. He'd left it untied and feared it might fall into a well. And the Nawab, his mind was off in Kandahar, thinking about buying horses for trade.
Wow, so they were physically there, but mentally elsewhere.
Exactly. Guru Nanak's point was, true prayer isn't just the physical movement, it's the inner reality, the sincerity, the focus, the devotion. The Nawab was reportedly amazed that Guru Nanak knew their thoughts. It just hammered home his teaching. Religion is about directing your mind to God, not just going through the motions. He then defined a true Muslim as one whose actions match their faith, whose heart is pure, who accepts God's will, setting an ethical standard for everyone.
So after this awakening period, Guru Nanak begins these really extensive travels, right, with his companion, Mardana. And these journeys seem designed to break down barriers through direct encounters.
Absolutely. They were teaching missions in motion, and one of the most famous examples of challenging the social hierarchy happened at Saidpur.
Tell us about that one.
Well, the contrast was stark. Guru Nanak arrives and chooses to stay with Lalu. Lalu was a poor carpenter, low caste, but earned his living through honest, hard work. At the same time, he pointedly refuses an invitation from Malik Bhago. Bhago was the local governor, rich, high caste, but known for exploiting people.
Aggo must have been furious. A public snub like that.
He was outraged. He summons Guru Nanak and demands to know why he chose the coarse food of a poor, low-caste man over his lavish, high-caste feast.
And this leads to that incredibly vivid demonstration.
Yeah.
The milk and the blood.
Yes, it's unforgettable.
Yeah.
Guru Nanak asks for food from both houses. He takes Lalu's simple, coarse bread and squeezes it, and out comes pure milk.
Wow.
Then he takes Bhago's rich, fancy food and squeezes it, and out drips blood.
The visual message is just instantaneous. You don't even need words.
Exactly. The crowd watching understood immediately, but Guru Nanak explained it clearly. Bhago's wealth, his food, was stained. It was acquired through oppression, greed, exploiting others. Lalu's simple bread, however, earned through honest hard work, kirat karo, and shared humbly, that was pure.
So the lesson was?
Salvation isn't about your caste or how elaborate your rituals are. It's about good deeds, rooted in honest earning and sharing. He basically elevated honest labor to a spiritual necessity and condemned exploitation. If you trample on others' rights, he said, you can't connect with God.
And this idea of staying engaged, doing your duty rather than escaping, comes up again later, doesn't it? Like in Sialkot, when Mardana wonders why they're walking away from towns.
Right. It circles back to that householder versus ascetic debate. Mardana asks, essentially, why are we heading into the wilderness instead of staying with people? And Guru Nanak's answer is key for his followers. He says true seekers don't shirk their duties or just wander off aimlessly. They stay among people. It's within society, through active sympathy, patience, and service, that you learn self-denial and conquer the 5 evils: lust, anger, greed, attachment, pride.
So running away to a cave doesn't actually solve the inner problems.
No, he said abandoning home without conquering yourself just leads to fake holiness, ego, and ultimately spiritual emptiness. You have to do the work where you are.
His travels took him incredibly far, promoting this universal message. Which leads us to maybe the most famous challenge to religious formalism outside India, the Mecca incident.
Ah, yes, the Kaaba story. It's iconic. Guru Nanak is traveling, he's tired, he lies down to sleep, and according to the story, he falls asleep with his feet pointing towards the Kaaba, the holiest shrine in Islam.
A huge taboo, obviously.
Absolutely. A local priest, Ruknuddin, sees this, is deeply offended, wakes him up shouting that he's desecrating the house of God.
And Guru Nanak's response is just classic Guru Nanak.
Utterly simple yet profound. He just says, okay, turn my feet towards the place where God does not dwell.
Mic drop moment, basically. What happened then?
Well, the source material describes a miracle that as the priest tried to drag his feet away, the Kaaba itself seemed to turn in that direction.
Right, a miracle narrative.
Yes, but whether you take that literally or not, the core teaching for the onlookers was clear. God isn't confined to one building or one direction. God is everywhere. The whole earth is his house. He was fundamentally challenging the idea that the divine is geographically limited.
We see a similar kind of symbolic brilliance in Multan with the pir there, communicating without even speaking.
Right. When Guru Nanak arrives in Multan, the local peers, the established holy men, send him a message. It's a cup. filled right to the very brim with milk.
The silent message being, we're full up. No room for another holy man here. Polite, but clear.
Exactly, a bit territorial.
So how does Guru Nanak respond to that, symbolically?
He takes a small jasmine flower and gently places it on the surface of the milk. It floats, it doesn't spill a drop.
Ah, brilliant. The flower adds fragrance, beauty, without taking up space or overflowing the cup.
Precisely. The metaphor was perfect. He would bring his message, the fragrance of truth and devotion, but he wasn't there to displace anyone, to take over, or demand followers by force.
And the deeper teaching he drew from that?
It tied back to shedding the ego, the hame. That sense of I-amness is what creates boundaries and separation. The flower symbolized living in the world, bringing virtue in the true name, but remaining untouched by its impurities, like a lotus on water. Inclusion without imposition. You can be in the world fully, yet spiritually detached.
It's so clear how he used these public moments to just dismantle rituals that felt empty. And this continued throughout his travels, didn't it? Like the water offering at Hardwar.
Oh yes, that's another classic example of his practical logic cutting through blind ritual. He arrives at Hardwar, a major Hindu pilgrimage site on the Ganges. He sees pilgrims standing in the river, scooping up water and throwing it eastward, towards the rising sun.
The traditional offering to ancestors in the next world.
Right, so Guru Nanak wades in, stands right beside them, and starts throwing water vigorously, but westward, in the complete opposite direction.
Okay, that would definitely get attention. The priest must have been furious.
Aghast is probably the word. They rush over, demanding to know what on earth he thinks he's doing. And Guru Nanak calmly replies, "Oh, I'm just watering my fields back in the Punjab. They're a bit dry." His fields were hundreds of miles west.
The priests must have laughed, right?
Yeah.
How could water thrown here reach fields hundreds of miles away?
Exactly. They scoffed, saying it was impossible, which was precisely the opening Guru Nanak wanted.
He turned it back on them.
Absolutely. He said, well, if this water can't even reach my fields a few hundred miles away on this earth, how on earth can the water you're throwing reach your ancestors in the next world, which must be infinitely farther?
The logic is just inescapable.
It silenced them. The point was clear. Rituals done without understanding, just because tradition says so, are empty exercises. They don't actually achieve anything spiritual. They just increase inner dirt, as he put it. Trading in empty ceremonies means you've forgotten the creator.
And we see a similar rejection of sort of empty spectacle at Jagannath Puri, another huge pilgrimage site. He opted out of the main temple service, the arti.
Yes, the evening arti there was, and still is, a very elaborate affair. Priests waving platters with lamps, bells ringing, chanting, burning incense in front of the temple idols. Very theatrical. But for Guru Nanak, this was all man-made stuff. It missed the bigger picture, the true grandeur of God's creation, so he refused to join in.
Arguing that nature itself was performing the true worship.
Exactly. He said the real arti, the real service, is happening constantly all around us. He then described this incredible cosmic arti.
Tell us about that vision. It's beautiful.
He said the entire sky is the platter, the thali, the sun and the moon, those are the lamps, the stars scattered across the sky, they're the pearls. The wind itself is the fan, the chari waving, and the natural fragrance of the sandalwood forests. That's the incense.
Wow.
This immense, natural, ongoing display that he said is the true worship being offered constantly to the formless, all-pervading Lord. Why rely on little man-made lamps and bells when the universe itself is singing God's praises? The true path, he said, was just repeating the name of the one who is everywhere. No props needed.
This rejection of external forms wasn't just aimed at Hindu rituals, right? He engaged with yogis, too, challenging their practices.
Oh, absolutely. He had extensive dialogues with various yogi orders, particularly those following Gorakhnath, known for their extreme physical austerities and renunciation. These yogis, with their specific robes, shaved heads, elaborate postures, they tried to pin him down. Okay, which sect, which denomination are you? And Guru Nanak's answer cut through all categories. I belong to the denomination of the formless.
So how did he redefine what true yoga or being a sannyasi actually meant, if it wasn't about the outer stuff?
He brought it back to inner conduct, just like with the sacred thread. True spiritual discipline, he argued, wasn't about abandoning your home or twisting your body into knots. It was about living as a householder with dedication, serving others, being detached from selfish desires while engaged in life. He said outward appearances, like roads or ashes, are useless if the inside is full of ego. In fact, he stated it quite powerfully. Blessed is a householder who is devoted to the feet of the Lord. More blessed, even, than a sannyasi or yogi if that householder lives truthfully and without selfish desire.
Okay, to really get our heads around this practical path, we need to understand how he interpreted two huge concepts in Indian thought, karma and maya.
Yes, this is fundamental to his ethics. For Guru Nanak, Maya wasn't just
Okay, so maya is getting stuck on the temporary. How did he approach karma then? The law of cause and effect. Did he just say actions don't matter?
No, not at all. Actions matter hugely. But he taught that actions bind you to the cycle of cause and effect unless they are performed selflessly. If you act purely as service, dedicated to God and humanity, without chasing personal reward, you effectively neutralize the binding power of karma. You shed the burden.
So it's about the intention and the detachment behind the action.
Precisely. Honesty, integrity, self-surrender in your actions. That's what leads to liberation, uniting the soul with the true one. Your life's account, as it were, needs to merit release through ethical living.
So after all these decades of traveling, spreading this message far and wide, Guru Nanak eventually settles down. He establishes Kartarpur on the banks of the river Ravi.
Right, and Kartarpur wasn't just a retirement spot. It was the living embodiment of his whole philosophy.
The working model.
Exactly. The living laboratory. He became a farmer, a householder again, actively demonstrating that you could live a deeply spiritual life while doing everyday work raising a family. He lived out those three pillars he taught. Karat Karo, earn honestly through your own labor. Nam Japo, constantly remember and chant God's name. And Van Chako, share what you have with others. The community that grew there wasn't defined as Hindu or Muslim. They were just followers of the true word, practicing devotion and ethical living together in the world.
And that really validated his whole argument for the householder path, didn't it? Showing it could be done.
It absolutely did. It proved that salvation wasn't just for renunciates. It was achievable right there amidst work and family life.
Okay, so let's try and boil this down. What are the absolute core, practical takeaways from Guru Nanak's teachings based on our sources?
I think we can distill it into four key principles, still incredibly relevant today. First, monotheism. Absolute belief in one God, Ek Onkar. Formless, boundless, everywhere. Worship that one reality, not idols or intermediaries.
Okay, one God.
Second, righteous living. Truth and integrity are everything. Your actions, your earnings must be honest. Live by love and service. Never exploit others. Ethics are central.
Got it. Truth in action.
Third, humanism. Universal love, tolerance, selfless service. Deva. Serving humanity is the highest form of worship. Recognize the divine spark in everyone.
And service is worship.
And fourth, inner purity. External rituals mean nothing without a pure heart. You have to conquer those five inner evils: lust, anger, greed, attachment, pride. Constant self-reflection and refinement are key.
It's striking how much his message focused on ethical action within the world, not escaping it. That feels incredibly relevant now, trying to balance ambition, duty, integrity.
It really does. And think about the world he lived in. The sources sometimes call it like living under a drawn sword full of conflict. He offered virtues as a kind of spiritual family to guide people. He famously said, "Forgiveness is my mother, contentment my father, truth the uncle."
That's a powerful image.
It is. So thinking about the conflicts and, frankly, the information chaos of our time, maybe we can ask ourselves, and ask you listening, which one of those family members, forgiveness, contentment, or truth, which virtue feels most critical today to achieve that true living Guru Nanak championed? So what does this all mean?
That's a really provocative question. Forgiveness, contentment, truth. Looking at today's deep divisions, the way information gets twisted, maybe it's truth, the uncle. Like in that blood and milk story, without that anchor of truth, of integrity, how can you even build forgiveness or find contentment? It feels foundational. He really drilled down on how intent and honesty color everything we do.
And that brings us back to the core. The biggest lesson from this deep dive seems to be that real religious life isn't hidden away. It's found in the unbroken practice of divine love and service to fellow men. Right here, right now. The path isn't exclusive. It's open to anyone living honestly, serving others with a pure heart.
Yeah, that idea that the dedicated householder is actually more blessed than the hermit, that's a powerful call for all of us to engage ethically in the world. Maybe the takeaway is to reflect on how much truth really governs our own daily choices and actions. That seems to be the key.